I know I'm really late for this one, and I've been dying to get to it, but I had to work on an important presentation for the last 5 days, but finally we're here, which is a very welcome break for me. Now, last sauropod, we got a dinosaur from Dicraeosauridae, a clade distinct enough to be recognized from other sauropods. However, my very first such taste of a distinct sauropod came from this book in the form of Camarasaurus. And even as a kid, I had an instinctive feel that something was different, though I didn't know exactly what. Camarasaurus has 4 recognized species. The most common one is Lentus, and was about 16 meters or 52.5 feet. I estimate this model to be 46 centimeters or 18.5 inches through the centra, so it would be about 1 to 35 for Lentus. Now the height is 21 centimeters or 8.3 inches, and here's the Wonder Artistic Model's humanoid for a rough visualization. Camarasaurus means chambered lizard, and the etymology is interesting. Sauros, of course, we know, but Camara comes from the Greek kamara, referring to a vaulted chamber. And if you're interested in architecture, you may have seen vaulted chambers like this. Camarasaurus was one of the first sauropods known to have pleurocoels in the cervical vertebrae, and so reminded the namers of these same vaulted chambers. Nowadays, of course, we know that pneumaticity is a characteristic seen in many sauropods. Now, as usual, there are 2 colors, and here I have to really kick myself. Camarasaurus is special for fans of macronarians like myself as a basal member, and I knew that the in-hand model would look better than the release images, and yet I still got only the green, and I'm sure you've seen photos or videos by now, and you know they look equally good, and I dare say that sometimes the brown even looks better to me. So let's take a closer look. The head of Camarasaurus is very distinct, and you can see obvious features: the rather cuboidal shape, the blunted off snout, and a bit of a helmet that speaks to the huge nares underneath. This was certainly a prototype macronarian, and it shows. Now, one thing that leaps out is the shrink wrapping in the head. This is something we don't see much of today, and when it's quite obvious, it invites comparisons to the actual skull. Now, I just so happen to have a replica of a Camarasaurus skull here, 3D printed and painted by J. Carrier from the Dinosaur Dungeon, which in addition to painting models, also does 3D printing as well. I'll link to his info below. And even ignoring the separating strut from the entorbital fenestra, the shape of the orbit is not a good match, most obvious being the roundedness here versus the angulation seen here in the model. Now, it has been in vogue to add some kind of beak to sauropods today, and given the importance of Camarasaurus in supporting this idea, it's of course something we want to pay attention to. Now, I'm delighted to see it's rather well formed, with nice texture that's complemented with a worthy paint application, but not so delineated that those of you who don't believe in beaks won't be too offended. The eyes I like with that blue sclera, and are painted very carefully. Now here, unfortunately, you can see that, at least in mine, from some angles, depending on the tilt, there is an asymmetry in the eyes, and it's not just the eyeballs being askew, a pet gripe of mine. This is on a different level, shall we say, and to put it bluntly, really looks like a deformity. And it gives it a slightly derpy look, and unfortunately reminds me a bit of Mudflap here, which is a pity. Now, the club-like impression of the blunt head is enforced by the apparent tapering down here in the neck, And as we go down, you'll see plenty of the kind of detail we've seen in Haolonggood's models, just an abundant richness of sculpted detail. And you can see the scales, the folds, and the wrinkles in the neck. And here on top, they've included a row of midline scutes, and you'll see not a single one is the same as the other. And there's also variation in the paint application. You'll see different tones. As we've seen, Haolonggood is so good at adding these infusions of colors and layers of subtle applications really add up. From the top here, I absolutely love this series of stripes going down the neck. Very nicely blended. And not to mention the very impressive thickness of that neck. Now let's continue down from the top. You can see the continuation of those midline scutes down the back. This time flanked on either side by a generous accompaniment of other scutes. Detail-wise, it's just such a pleasure. Just look at these scales, transitioning to smaller ones going down the sides of the body. So let's go down the body. And while the detail is delicious, I especially wanted to point out just how beautiful it is. Now you'll see that even in the general basement scales, there are separate cluster areas of differently sized and shaped scales. The richness of detail is just astounding as always. You'll see feature scales scattered among the general basement. And even though this is still 1:35 scale, the detail still looks believable. Now you guys know that the shoulder area is my favorite region for detail, and here you won't see any shortfall compared to Haolonggood's previous offerings. In fact, I could just shut up and let the music roll, and little needs be said about the high quality that's come to define their models. You see how well the paint application really adds to the whole canvas here. And the way these markings are blended into the green going down the arm just looks so natural. And here we have the rather standardized darkening going into the hands, which is still pleasing to look at, and I'm glad to see a unexaggerated thumb claw in the manus. And seriously, this is one model that I could lose myself in just looking at detail. Just beautiful to look at. Now down the hip, thigh, really I could just slack off and shut up and let you see for yourself. Leg, and the feet. And as for the tail, it's no surprise that the muscle bundles are nicely brought out and dressed in those scales and paint application. Interestingly, you see in the cloacal region a kind of puckering, almost as if the animal has just evacuated or is about to, and it's best to get out of the way. I don't recall seeing this before. And you'll see now that the color accent starts not near the tip as usual, but much sooner, gradually brightening up into this very loud orange red. And here the accent doesn't completely encircle the tail until we get to the end. And together with these stripes, the aesthetics speak for themselves. Now, a look at the underside. And here's exactly how you can do paint schemes based on the same general colors, but in a unique, differentiated and non-derivative way. And on a personal bias, I should also mention that this is a very drab kind of green that gets me drooling, very similar in mood to that seen in their criminally undersized Edmontosaurus. What a beautifully pleasing model, and I'm definitely going to get the yellow-brown one at some point. Now, before our comparisons, just a little digression into beaks. There's probably 10 different things I could talk about related to Camarasaurus, but I thought it could be interesting to talk about recent reconstructions of sauropods with beaks, and a part that Camarasaurus has played in the evidence in support of this. One of the most well-known papers on the subject is Wiersma and Sandler 2016, and here are some of its conclusions. Now, the first line of evidence is in isolated tooth rows, or ITRs. Now, ITRs have been found for many sauropods. Now, these are sets of articulated teeth that are found in isolation, without any surrounding bone structures. And here you see an example in Europasaurus. Now, they postulate that the teeth were held together by gingival connective and keratinous tissue, making up a rhamphatica-like structure, which held them together in situ after separating from the rest of the skull. Now, secondly, evidence is strengthened by functional teeth that have lost contact with the anchoring jawbones. For example, here you see the left dentary, and D3 and D6 here. In fact, you can even see signs of the replacement teeth emerging here. So the maintenance of the position can be explained by connective tissue in a beak-like structure. Otherwise, they would have been completely lost. Thirdly, the pattern of wear is limited to only the upper 50% or even less. This suggests that the lower half was protected from wear before the teeth were shed by gingiva and a beak that extended onto the crown, leaving only the crown tips protruding. Fourth, there's a suggestion of soft tissue patches which cover not just the roots, but also extend partially over the crowns, if you see here in this patch, covering the left D5 to 8, and a smaller one over D1 and 2. So that's it for the paper. Now I'll link to that below, but for an abbreviated overview, you can also check out the poster from SVP 2019 for a brief overview of the arguments. Now, let's get to the comparisons. The most obvious ones will of course be my other two Camarasauruses. First, we have the more recent Wild Safari Camarasaurus. This is one of my favorite Wild Safari models, and you can see it's gone for a bruiser type look. You see that in thickness, it's not very much less than the Haolonggood, but because it's shorter and more compact, it actually looks more like a bodybuilder than our Haolonggood today. It's still a model worthy of respect. And just look at the pose of it. It's the active pose here that really sells this one. Then my very first representative of the genus, and just like with so many other dinosaurs, is the Carnegie collection Camarasaurus. Of course, there's no comparison if you look at aspects like fineness of detail or the subtlety of paint apps, and certain anatomical shortfalls like the separated toes and the proportions of the neck. But overall, it's still a very nice one to have, not to mention its sentimental value. Now let's look at some more derived macronarians. We have the W dragon, Giraffatitan. Nanmo watchman Brachiosaurus. Then getting into titanosaurs, we have Haolonggood's own Alamosaurus. And the one to rule them all, the Era Terra Argentinosaurus. You might like to also see their latest 1-35 sauropods, which really is Haolonggood's biggest gift to me, such as the Amargasaurus. And then Mamensisaurus. Finally, we have our traditional size comparators, the Wilson T-Rex, and here you can really see that Camarasaurus isn't that big, and the Cameron T-Rex. So that's it for the Haolonggood Camarasaurus. A part of me wishes that we'd gotten it later, just to spread out the sauropods a bit, because it means we essentially have only one more sauropod and 4 ceratopsians left. Although at the rate that Haolonggood is going, I wouldn't be surprised if they threw in a few surprises for us before the year is out. That'll do it for me. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.